Our first speaker today is the son of Cesar Chavez. He grew up in the strike. He has dedicated his entire life to the movement. He leads other parts of the farm worker movement that was also founded in the 1960s. It helps remedy also the abuses of the farm workers and other poor working families and seniors, everything that they face outside the workplace and in the community.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of the Cesar Chavez Foundation, which also owns and operates this historical site, such as the 40 acres, Mr. Paul Chavez.
Good morning, buenos dias, and welcome to the historic 40 acres. You know, the 40 acres was the movement's, first home of our own. And throughout the years, it's played a big, big part in the history of this glorious movement. In looking around behind us, we have the gas station, the cooperative gas station, which was the first building that was built here. And not only did it pump Huelga gas, but it also is the place that my dad fasted for 25 days in 1968 to rededicate the movement to nonviolence. And then over here, I remember growing up, it was the place that they parked a mobile clinic before they had a chance to build the permanent clinic back over here. And behind us here was the first headquarters for the United Farm Workers Organizing Committee. But also, it was the place that the growers came in July of 1970 to sign contracts to end the Delano Grape strike. The place later on in 1974 where the movement built the Agbiani village to ensure that our Filipino brothers had a decent place to live. And it's also been the site of many fundraisers and meetings and rallies. But the fact is that everything goes back to the 1965 strike. The work continues on a daily basis, and one of the things that we've done in the Chavez Foundation is which was also founded in the 60s, in 1966, under the name of the National Farm Worker Service Center. What we do is we have this tradition where we strive to keep alive the names of those peoples on whose shoulders we stand today. And so among our affordable housing communities, we have places like Ross Gardens in Fresno that honors the work and the legacy of Fred Ross, who was a mentor to my dad and Dolores and to many other people. There's Casa Velasco in Fresno that's named after AWOC and UFW leader Peter Velasco. In Parlier, we have Villa Salandini, named after Father Victor Salandini, the tortilla priest. We have in Fresno Plaza Mendoza, named after Crescencio Mendoza, the movement's first organizer in Fresno County. Here in Delano, we have Casa Hernandez, named after Julio Hernandez and Fina Hernandez, who were some of the first members of the union. In Bakersfield, we have Gouveia Gardens that's named after Jessica Gouveia and her family there. They're always strong supporters of the union. And even as far away as Mercedes, Texas, we have Casa Saldaña, named after the Saldaña clan, who has always been front and center. And we would like to take credit for that tradition. The fact is that it's something that began way before us. Here at the gas station, here at the 40 acres, the gas station I mentioned is named after Tomasa Zapata, a striker that passed away of cancer during that first strike. We have the clinic that I talked about is the Rogelio Terrones clinic that honors a young man that gave his life for this movement. There's the Pablo Agbayani village that honors an AWOC member that died on a picket line. There's the Ruther Hall that commemorates the work of the UAW and the Ruther brothers. And there is even the Reina Olivas daycare center. My dad talked about his work. He said that his job as an organizer was to help ordinary people do extraordinary things. what he did was he inspired the poorest of the poor to believe that they could succeed against tremendous odds. And I think that all too often we don't get the opportunity to thank people until it's too late for all that they've done. So today we gather to honor many of you who have done the impossible. And so today we'd like to thank each and every one of you for the sacrifice and the commitment and the example that you put forward 5 decades ago. Thank you all very much, and viva la causa.
Muchísimas gracias a Paul Chavez.
Thank you so much, Paul Chavez. Also, ladies and gentlemen, with us here this morning, we have some other special guests. I'd like to recognize Executive Director, National Farm Workers Ministry, Julie Taylor. Can you please stand? There she is. We also have from the Royal Chicano Air Force Corps member and chair of the UFW Support Committee of Northern California, Juanita Ontiveros. And none other than the son of Filipino brother, Larry Itliong, Johnny Itliong.
Another measure of how things have changed in Delano is the subject of our next speaker. Rudy Salas worked when he was a young kid in the Grapes. His aunt and uncle were UFW strikers and boycotters in the 1970s. Rudy Salas now represents the district that includes Delano in the California State Assembly. Assemblymember Salas voted this year for 2 important bills sponsored by the UFW to protect the farm workers.
And also with us, ladies and gentlemen, we have Assemblymember Rob Bonta. Rob Bonta, yes, let's give him a round of applause. Assemblymember Bonta is the first Filipino-American state legislator in the history of California. But he also grew up at the UFW headquarters at La Paz and King, watching his parents organize Filipino and Latino farm workers while they were working with Cesar Chavez. Rob Bonta authorized recent state laws requiring the Filipinos' contributions to the farm labor movement be taught in the state public schools, and establishing Larry Itliong Day in California on Larry's birthday, October 25th. He also helped shepherd farm worker health care legislation that strengthened the UFW Robert F. Kennedy medical plan and saved the state money.
Before we introduce Assemblyman Rob Bonta, we're going to go ahead and call Mr. Rudy Salas, who has a resolution.
Good morning, how are you today? Great to see you, what an amazing crowd. I'm honored to be here. I'm Rob Bonta, I serve in the California State Assembly. Deeply honored to be the first Filipino-American state legislator in the history of this great state. Thank you all for allowing me to serve you. And thank you to Arturo of the UFW for inviting me today. Just a deep honor to be here. And I just want to ask you, how many of you came from over 25 miles away to be here? All right, wow. How many of you came from over 50 miles away? Woo, over 100. Wow. 200. Very committed, and rightfully so. This is a really critical event, and every one of you matters being here. How many of you have a friend or a family member or relative who was personally involved in the Delano Grape strike of 1965? Beautiful. And how many of you are personally involved in the Delano Grape strike of 1965? I love it. I love it. I'm proud of my family's history with the UFW movement. I lived in the great headquarters of the UFW movement, La Paz. My parents and I, and my brother and my sister, we lived in a trailer about 500 yards from Cesar Chavez. And my father is here today, and I just want to ask him to stand up. I think I see you, Dad. Thank you for your work and your inspiration. And I just want to say that the Delano Grape strike of 1965 and the California farm labor movement, the farm labor movement generally, is one of the greatest social justice movements in the history of our state, our country, and our world. And it's important that that story be told, that stand and fight for change, and the collaboration that made it so strong and so powerful. Filipinos standing side by side with Latinos, and members of every ethnic group from all over the state, all over the country, all over the world, growing this movement and creating the change that we need. And this story is not told often enough, and that's why I introduced AB 123. My colleague, Rudy Salas here, was a co-author, which requires that the contributions of Filipino Americans to the California farm labor movement be taught in our public schools, and that beautiful collaborative struggle be told to our children and our children's children. So I'm honored to be here to continue the struggle and fight with you, and I'm honored to be here with my colleague Rudy Salas to present a very important resolution. Thank you for having me. Salamat po.
All right, good morning everyone. Buenos dias. So, I got the privilege of growing up here, right in the valley. I remember watching the marches, whether it was Fremont Street or Cecil. I remember growing up as a kid, and I would tell my parents, what's going on outside? They said, just go out and join them. Just go out and join them, right? And you got to learn about these titans, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Larry Long, Philip Veracruz, right? And you start asking those questions as kids. What are they doing? What are they fighting for? Well, son, sometimes it's just having restrooms in the fields. What it comes down to, son, is having respect and dignity for the workers that put food on our tables. That's what it comes down to. Thank you guys all for being here. I have to mention my family as well, who was involved in the 65 strikes, who joined not only the march, but even I had family members join the boycott in Canada, even the years afterwards. And so I have to say, thank you guys, thank you to them, thank you to my family members that did that. But more than anything, we do have a resolution that we do want to present. So if we could have Arturo, Emily, Maria, everybody kind of come up. This is a resolution from the state of California that commemorates the strike. It commemorates how we should be treating all workers with dignity and respect. And this is something that will now be memorialized in the state capitol, in our history in the state of California, memorializing everything that everyone here has collectively done, which is to treat workers with dignity and respect. So thank you guys. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Si se puede. Si se puede.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, let's give another round of applause for Assemblymember Rudy Salas and Rob Bonta. Thank you so much for coming today.
And we have some more names that we need to let you guys know about, VIPs and special guests that are here today. Go ahead.
And let's give a round of applause for Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, who is with us today.
Por ahí está, ahí está.
Monterey County Supervisor Fernando Armenta.
Bienvenido.
Cerritos City Council Member Mark Polito.
Allá está en la orilla. Muy bien. Thank you so much for being here today.